This week I would like to talk about the flanger or flanger effect. You may hear me go either way when I'm saying that. Also, I apologize, my voice is sounding really rough. I have a bit of a cold and a cough, and it's making my voice very grindy. The use of flangers goes all the way back to the 1960s. The probably most popular and well-known use for it was when it was used on Beatles albums. In fact, there's a famous quote from George Martin talking with John Lennon, and he says, "Now listen, it's very simple. We take the original image and we split it through a double bifurcated splashing flange with double negative feedback." Which, of course, to John Lennon didn't make a lot of sense, and George Martin was, of course, making fun of him because I don't believe there's anything such as a splashing flange. But I will explain to you the basics of how Flanger works and some of its uses in Ableton Live. Now, the Flanger built into Ableton Live is a very, very simple, very German Flanger, I would say. It has everything we need and it works, but there are other Flangers out there which you throw a signal into and you get something out that sounds immediately more impressive than the Flanger built into Ableton Live. I know when I first got Ableton Live, I expected something similar to the Flanger that I've been using on the typical Pioneer mixers that are used all over the world for DJing. Because for those, you have a single knob and you put your mix in and it sounds amazing when it comes out. And when you're playing with a Flanger in Ableton Live, most of the time you will not get the same result. You'll not get that instant, wow, this sounds cool and bigger and exciting and different sound. But the Flanger in Ableton Live is built around the fundamentals, so let's get right into it. If you'd like to put a Flanger in your track, you of course just look in your audio effects, you grab a Flanger, and you drag it right into whatever track you're working with. One of the best places to work with it, to start and to kind of understand it, is working with a sweep sound. But before we get to all that, let's talk about just the basics of the Flanger. The left side affects basically like the input, so we can put a high pass filter that's already built into the Flanger if we want to. There's a dry wet. So let me explain how Flanger works basically. How Flanger works is you take the original input signal and you delay it by some amount of time, and then you mix those two together, basically at 50-50%. What happens is based on the amount of delay, typically it's between 1 to 20 milliseconds is a typical Flanger range. What happens is it ends up working like a comb filter, and basically if you look at the frequencies, if you take a signal and you delay it 2 milliseconds and you put it on top of itself, well, the frequencies which correspond to having their fundamental frequency be equal to 2 milliseconds end up lining up or canceling on each other. So you end up with this kind of interesting frequency effect. It's like a comb filter, like I said. And then what you do is you vary the delay time, so you end up with boosted and cut frequencies through your frequency spectrum, varying. So it gives you this kind of, or this kind of sound, but it's taking place on top of everything that's already there. Another part of that is not only do you delay the signal, but then you input that signal again, so you end up with a signal with feedback. So not only do you end up with a delay signal, but you end up with a delayed signal, and going out on and on and on. If you aren't varying the amount of delay, the Flanger effect will act just like a simple delay, actually, with feedback. And you can also put negative feedback there as well if you'd like. So the first thing that really changes the sound of our Flanger effect is the delay time down here at the bottom. The delay time changes the delay on the Flanger, and you end up with a milder and more, I'd say, high frequency affecting effect. The lower delay time, and then it turns into a stronger and stronger effect as you increase the delay time. And the other part is the feedback, and likewise, the more feedback you have, the stronger this effect is, and the more kind of delayed and with a slightly more, I'd say, washed out sound as you increase and decrease the feedback. The envelope acts similar to the envelope on anything else. So if you increase the envelope, and what the envelope will do is, if you have it up, then if something, you have a sharp, harsh transient coming in, something loud, then if you have it pushed up, then it will push up the feedback and it will push up the delay time. And then the opposite happens if this is a negative, and then you can affect, how quickly does it happen and how quickly does it release from doing those things. The envelope is not it's not something that strongly affects the sound in most cases using it. Really where the trick of the flanger happens is here in the LFO. So what the amount does is it affects the amount that you're affecting, and what you're affecting here is the delay time, and then the shape of that. So you could be affecting it with a sine wave, so you'd be increasing it and then decreasing it and increasing and decreasing the delay time, which is what gives you that sweeping up and sweeping down sound that's known for a flanger. And then obviously you can affect how quickly that happens. You can also change the phase. So what this means is it happening equally on, if you have it in 0, then is it happening equally on both stereo channels, or are you going to have your stereo channels in opposite, where one is going up while the other is going down? And you can also put on an offset. So if you look at the sine wave, if we're at 0, then our offset starts at this point, and it'll go up first and down first. But if we wanted it to go down first and then up, then we could put our offset at 180 degrees, and then we would start in the middle of the sine wave, and we'd go down first and then up. So there's various applications where we might think about doing that. So one of the most common uses for flangers for music producers is working with sweeps, which means these little white noise effects that we have. So first let's listen to this without anything on it. And this is, I always label my sweeps by the number of bars. So this is 4 bars up and then 2 bars down. So 16 beats up and then 8 bars down. And let's just take a real quick listen. So it's a good sounding sweep, but like I said, it sounds very white noisy, but it's not very interesting. Let's add a flanger and let's make it more interesting. So let's turn on our flanger and let's turn up our delay time here quite a bit. I like a lot, so I'm going to turn this all the way up to 7 milliseconds, and then I'm going to turn my amount on my LFO all the way up. And since this is going up for 4 bars, so I'm going to want to make this flanger, if I turn this rate up to 8, then the sine wave we can make it go up. So it's going to that positive part for 4 bars, and then it's going to go in the opposite direction for 4 bars, which is perfect for what we'd want here. I think this will give us a cool sound. So let's take a listen to it like that. So now we have this almost kind of airplane going by you, shooting by your head, or airplane takeoff kind of sound. So we have this coming up and coming down sound, and there's 2 different ways that we can do this. Actually, with delay time, like I said, we can use the LFO here with the amount, or another option is let's turn this all the way off, and instead of doing that, let's vary our delay time in our envelope. So to vary our envelope, click on our clip, Shift Tab, and we turn on and off this little envelope thing, and we go flanger delay time. Let's start at sounding sweep effect like that. And we can vary the amount of feedback. Flangers also work really well on synths to add just this little bit of variation and interest to them, to keep things slightly almost randomized. There's a really great little preset built into Flanger. It's called Hearing Voices. So let's listen to our trance arp. This is a little trance riff that I wrote for my filter delay tutorial, and let's just take one listen to it. So it's really simple trance riff with a little bit of filter delay on it, but we want just a little bit of extra interest, so let's just put Hearing Voices on it, and let's just see how that comes out. We'll turn down our dry wet here just a little bit. There's without. I think it's a little more interesting like this. Now, with this, I'd probably put a compressor after this because it's really giving me this really peaky kind of signal. That's without. Sounds just a little bit extra spacey, a little bit more kind of out there. But it's very mild, and obviously you can make it more extreme if you want. So I hope this has given you some good ideas about some different things that you can do with Flangers in Ableton Live. And I also want to let you know that this is part of an effect tutorial series that I'm putting together at Ableton Production Tutorials. Right now at Ableton Production Tutorials, under the Productions page, there's a link at the bottom of this video. Just go there and click on the Productions page. There is a list and effects tutorials for every single audio effect in Ableton Live. There are only right now just very few missing from the list because there were already good tutorials out there for most of Ableton's effects, but I just wanted to put together a few extra tutorials to fill in those little missing gaps. I recommend every music producer take the time to learn to use every single effect in Ableton Live, and therefore if there's something you don't understand or don't already know, I really recommend taking the time and working through tutorials and getting a few ideas of, hey, I can use this effect here, I can use this effect here. It basically puts more in your armory. You know, it gives you a bigger repertoire to work with when you're working on tracks. I would like to thank you again for taking a look at this Ableton Production Tutorials, and I hope to see you for the next one. Thanks.